Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. Today I wanted to talk about my social work journey and also how to get into medical social work. Before we get started, make sure you subscribe to my channel if you have not done so already, and hit the notification bell so you can know when my new videos go up, and also follow me on Instagram. I'm always on Instagram, okay? My Instagram handle is theprototype_. So let's go ahead and get into the video. Okay, so my social work journey. Initially, when I was an undergrad, I wanted to be a psychiatrist. I wanted to be, a doctor. So freshman year, I was registering in all, the pre-med classes and was crying every single day. But I just didn't have the discipline. I didn't have the support, or I wasn't willing to seek the support I needed to continue to be pre-med and become a doctor. So I was like, okay, well, I'm just going to major in African American studies because I love learning about Black people. And then eventually I dropped out. So I dropped out of University of Washington. I went to the Seattle campus. I dropped out in my sophomore year. And I was just working, and then I wanted to pursue cosmetology. Y'all know what I'm talking about, hair school, okay? During that time, people were getting really big on YouTube and for doing their own hair, and I started doing my own hair by learning off of YouTube. And so I'm like, I like doing my own hair, so that means I want to do hair, right? Long story short, I did not get the funding I needed to go to hair school. Then I decided to go back to the University of Washington. I was just racking my brain about, okay, if I go back to school, what do I want to do? And so I decided to go into social work. I applied to be readmitted into University of Washington, got back into University of Washington, and then during that time I was like laser focused on getting into my undergrad social work program. So I was just trying to fulfill my prerequisites so I could apply to the program. Applied to the program and got in. Okay, initially when I wanted to go into the social work program, I wanted to do like HIV outreach because ever since I was young, like there was a lady in my church whose son had HIV or AIDS at the time, and she would be they would have like fairs and festivals or whatever talking about HIV, and it was just so fascinating to me how so many people are impacted by this disease, but it is so preventable. And so that's what I initially wanted to do. Changed my mind, okay? So when I was in my undergrad program, my practicum was in juvenile probation. So in that program, I learned that I like working with kids, and I still do. That is my favorite population to work with. But I also started getting like overwhelmed by micro social work. Micro social work. I was just like, what kind of change could we actually do when we're just working on an individual level? I just couldn't see it. And then also in my program, I just feel like it was just a whole bunch of like talking about being oppressed and not enough about talking about how to break down these barriers so we don't have to be oppressed. It was just too much for me. And so I was like, I'm gonna get my MSW, but it's gonna be a macro because that's the way you make change, okay? So got into my MSW program at the University of Georgia. I only applied to 2 grad school programs. I applied to Florida State and University of Georgia, and my thinking was I want to go somewhere with better weather. Got into both programs, however, Florida State didn't really give me any money. It was mostly like loan. University of Georgia gave me an assistantship, so that meant that my entire program would be paid for, and I would also have a monthly stipend because you work with a professor. So after I graduated from my program, I was still working at the our practicum place. They hired me on for the summer, but they knew and I knew that my goal was to move on, and initially I wanted to be in Atlanta. That was where I wanted to be. Couldn't find a job, but it was mostly because I wasn't disciplined. Again, I wasn't disciplined. I didn't know what I really wanted to do. I was thinking about doing like student advising and just non-traditional social work roles, and I just didn't know what the hell I was doing, okay? So I couldn't find a job in Atlanta that I wanted, so I started applying for jobs back in Seattle. I landed a job and then I moved back to Seattle. My first job was in an employee assistance program. Didn't want to do that, and then I moved on to working in children's administration, aka CPS, but I was working with foster families and kids who are already taken, from their parents' custody, and making sure they get what is permanency. After that, I did like in-home family therapy, crisis work. That was taxing, okay? But within that role, that's when I discovered medical social work. I don't know if I didn't know if it was a thing, or I wasn't interested in the past, but in that role, I learned about medical social work because I worked with them a lot of the time, especially in the ER, because a lot of the kids that I worked with had, mental health or behavioral health issues. So I started to apply for medical social work positions, and then eventually I landed one in the ER. And then now I started traveling in 2021. So that is my social work journey. It has been all over the place, but now I finally got to a point where I feel like I'm happy within my career. I feel satisfied with where I am right now. There's been so many times throughout my career where I was like, I hate that I chose to be a social worker. I regret this. I wish I would have went into tech or business or something. Like, why did I choose this? And I think that's mostly because I was in roles where I couldn't really pay my bills. I was living above my means. I wanted to have more money, but I couldn't find those type of roles. But now I'm making the money I want to make. I'm working in jobs that I want to work. I feel a lot happier. I'm licensed now. Like, I have an LMSW. Next step is going to be get my LICSW. So I'm happy with where I am within my career. Today I wanted to talk about getting into medical social work, because I know a lot of people want to do that. I feel like it is one of the more competitive niches or fields within social work. So let me help y'all. Okay, first thing is you need to get your MSW. Like, that's the #1 thing. Okay, there are some not agencies, but like sectors or whatever within medical social work where you can have your BSW, like skilled nursing facilities or like rehab places. I've seen they will hire BSWs, but it is best to get your MSW. Like, just go ahead and get that out of the way. Especially if you have your BSW, it'll only take about a year to get your MSW through the advanced standing program. I definitely recommend doing research and understanding your values to find the best MSW program. For me, like I said earlier, I just wanted to be in the South with better weather, okay? And that's what I did. School ranking wasn't important to me. It was just like, do I like the program, and is it going to be somewhere where the weather is better? Also, what was important to me was like funding, because listen, what's the point of graduating with a lot of debt with a social work degree? I mean, there's just some fields I feel like it's not a good idea to graduate with so much debt, and social work is one of them. I definitely recommend that you make sure that when you are in your MSW program that your practicum is medical. So just make sure that you get a medical social work placement. That way you can have a lot of experience. You're gaining experience, and they may even hire you on after your practicum too. So definitely try to do that. Like I said, I didn't do that, but I just found ways to sell myself in the future, sell my skills in order to get a medical social work job. One thing a medical social work practicum placement will also do is it will also give you experience, so you can know if this will be the field that you want to go into as well. So it's a good way for you to gain experience, but also rule out the field, because you may not want to do it. And of course, you got to graduate and you need to get licensed. Every state is different. Every hospital system is different. Some want you to be licensed, some don't really care. Some want you to have your LCSW, some don't. They want you to have your master's levels, license. So just make sure you're researching the hospitals that you're interested in working at, researching your state regulations or licensure requirements. And also, shameless plug, I have a video about how I passed my LMSW exam 5 years after graduating, so I will leave it in the description box. I'll also leave a card up, those little links up, so you guys can check that out as well. And after you graduate, and even after you get your license, it is time to apply for jobs. Okay, so medical social work, there's so many possibilities. Like, you can work within dialysis, psychiatric hospital, acute care, which is like inpatient ER. You can work in a skilled nursing facility, rehab facility. The options are endless. I've even heard of like primary care clinics having social workers there too. Just do your research. Use Indeed, Glassdoor, Google, of course. I think Facebook even has like a job search tool. LinkedIn will be your friends. Use LinkedIn to find jobs too, and also do like informational interviews with social workers. I think that would be handy if you are having a hard time getting into the field. Just, you know, message a social worker on LinkedIn, see if they have, you can take like 5 or 10 minutes of their time, either in person or like a Zoom or whatever, and just ask some questions about what they do and then how they got into it. That would be dope, and then maybe you can even get a reference out of that. If you don't have any direct like medical social work or clinical experience, like I didn't have any medical backgrounds, just make sure you're highlighting your transferable skills. The most important ones that I think are like working amongst a team. Like when you're a medical social worker, you work with doctors, nurses, physical therapists, occupational therapists, dietitians, you know, just depending on what type of unit you're in, you work with so many different types of people. So highlight the fact that you can communicate well, work alongside others on a team. Highlight the fact that your documentation is objective. Say something in a way that says that you can think fast on your feet. I don't know what that would be like. It wouldn't be like fast learner. It'd be something like different. Like, oh, multitask. You can multitask, you can prioritize. Like, these are really important skills to have when you're working in medical social work. A few other things I want to touch on are skills you need to have when you're working in medical social work. Like, you need to have thick skin, and it may develop as you are in the field, but these doctors can be rude. These nurses can be rude, and don't take it personal. Like, you're going to have to grow a thick skin. And again, like, these patients can be rude, okay? So like, you're going to have to develop a thick skin and just not take, you know, things people say, you know, personal. But another thing is important to have is boundaries. Like, there should be no reason why people are talking to you crazy. You do not have to take it. Like, people be thinking that because we're social workers, we have to be gentle and dainty all the time. No, you can set firm professional boundaries with people. You also need to be resourceful, okay? Like, that's a big thing. You know, we are like the resource. People come to us for resources. So, you know, it's good to just be aware of things that are available in your community, and also be willing to learn about new resources in the community. You also need to be empathetic. Like, that is so important, to be able to put yourself in someone else's shoes and appreciate where they are when you're working with them, you know? And it takes a lot. Like, for me, it takes a lot, and because it requires you to be vulnerable, it requires you to be patient. So empathy is huge, and like I said, it may be a skill that you have to develop. You have to be quick with decision making as well, especially like if you're working in more of a fast-paced unit like the ER. Them decisions, you can't be sitting on your ass, you know, you have to come with it. So that's a big thing, but they need to be quick and sound decision. They need to have some clinical basis behind it. And some pros and cons of medical social work. So some cons are sometimes you may have to work on the weekend or the holidays because hospitals are, you know, around the calendar, around the clock. So that's something you have to keep in mind. And another con is, I do believe that medical social work is one of the hardest fields within social work to get into. I don't know if it's because the positions are few and far between or wet, or they have like really strict requirements, but it may take a long time for you to get placed in medical social work or find, you know, your role in medical social work. Some things I love about medical social work is, of course, the money. Like, medical social work is one of the highest paid fields within social work. I love that. I also love that I don't carry a caseload. Caseloads are not for me. I love working in fast-paced environments. Like, if my calendar is stacked for the day, that is okay. I love it. I love being on my feet because it makes the day go by faster, and just makes me feel really productive. I love that it is very like quick solution. That makes me feel rewarded because I'm able to see the problem and I'm able to see it through the end. For instance, like a patient comes in having mental health crisis, you do your assessment, you do your recommendation, and you get them to their next point. And this kind of goes with not carrying a caseload. Like, I love being like the triage point. I love like recommending other resources. I don't want to be the program or like the service provider. I love just saying, okay, you're saying that you want some counseling. How about you check out this list of counselors? Or you need psychiatric hospitalization. I'm not going to be providing that, but this hospital can do it. I love the fact that that is my role within medical social work. So that is it. That is the end of this video. If y'all have any more questions about medical social work, how to get in, or my journey, definitely let me know in the comments. You can also follow me on Instagram and send me a DM with any questions you have. My Instagram is _the_prototype_. And again, if you have not subscribed to my channel, go ahead and do that. I don't know why you haven't done that already, but you know what? I'm not gonna judge you, okay? I do appreciate you for watching, and I'll see y'all next time.